How would Your Holiness characterize the actual situation of the Christian communities in civil war-torn Syria and Iraq?
Christians are suffering in both Syria and Iraq, but their suffering is part of the suffering of the whole population. However, we feel that Christians are specifically targeted by these terrorist groups. Therefore, their suffering is double. We have seen many churches destroyed, schools and church institutions targeted. And of course, the worst that could have happened to Christians was the expulsion of Christians from the city of Mosul and from the plain of Nineveh. More than 120,000 people were expelled from their villages and towns in the plains of Nineveh and took refuge in the Kurdish region of Iraq. I visited them 3 times and I saw the misery there. These people are homeless. They have no place to live. They have no place to send their children for education, and their demand is to go back to their homes. That's in Iraq. And in Syria, we also have tens of thousands of Christians together with hundreds of thousands of Syrians, Muslims who are internally displaced, who took refuge in relatively more secure areas. They want to go back to their homes too. But in addition to all of this, migration from Syria and Iraq is killing us as Christians. It's weakening our presence. This is our homeland for centuries, for millennia, and now we are leaving this homeland and taking refuge in countries in Europe and in the United States. This is devastating for the whole community, and it's affecting badly the whole region. Not only Christians are affected, but Muslims also are affected by this, because we lived together for many centuries and we knew how to live together, Muslims as Christians. And now all of a sudden this divide is happening between Christians and Muslims, and it will take decades to heal this division.
Your Holiness, how can Christians celebrate Christmas under these terrible circumstances?
It is indeed very difficult. Christmas is about joy, it's about peace, about goodwill. And all these 3 values are missing today from the Middle East. How can we celebrate peace when devastation and destruction is all around us? How can we bring joy to the hearts of children and adults when almost every family is suffering? It's difficult, but as Christians, we always have hope. And Christianity is about hope of a better life. Therefore, the Church, through its services during Christmas time, tries to bring back hope to the souls of these people. So there will be celebrations, but these celebrations will be mostly religious celebrations. Unfortunately, we will not be able to demonstrate our joy on the streets as we used to do with trees and decorations. But we will continue to offer our services, church services, and try to bring some hope to the lives of people.
More and more people are claiming we are witnessing the doom of Christianity in a region, once being the cradle of Christian communities, such as in Mosul and Ma'lula. Does Your Holiness comply with this argument, or is Your Holiness more optimistic?
I wouldn't say that Christianity will finish from the Middle East. We have suffered much more in the past. Since the beginning of Christianity, Christians have always suffered persecution. The Lord Jesus promises in the Holy Gospel that in the world we'll have tribulation, we will not have peace. But Christianity survived through God's presence among His people and through the faith and the hope of the people. Yes, we are being hardly hit, and we are going to suffer, but there will still be Christians in the Middle East, and I hope and pray that their presence and their contribution to the life of the Middle East will be as effective as it has always been. It will not be the same, though. Hundreds of thousands have already left the Middle East, from Iraq, from Syria, from Turkey, from Jordan, from the Holy Land, from Egypt, from Lebanon. But we are the salt of the earth, and we are the light of the world. That's how the Bible calls us, and we have to be here in our homeland for our own sake and for the sake of our neighbors, the Muslims with whom we lived for many centuries. Christianity will remain here, but it will not be as effective and as active as it has been.
Also, we have been witnessing the steady flow of Christians from Turkey, here especially in Tur Abdin, to countries such as Germany. As a matter of fact, today, there are more Syrian-Orthodox Christians in Germany than in Tur Abdin. What does Your Holiness feel sorrow or sad when you know about these facts?
Obviously, I have mixed feelings, both sorrow, sad, and happy also. I have just come back from a visit to Europe, which included the city of Berlin, where I met several hundred families from our church who come mainly from Tur Abdin area in southeast Turkey. And then I paid an official visit to our diocese in Switzerland and in Austria. Again, I met thousands of people who migrated from Turkey, from Syria, from Iraq, from Lebanon. I see them there prospering. I see them happy, and I see them contributing to the societies they live with. Just to give you an example, in Sweden, we have also a large community that migrated mainly from Tur Abdin, but also from Syria and Lebanon. And right now, we have 5 members of the parliament, of the Swedish parliament, from our church. And we have 1 cabinet minister. In Germany, we have several officials on both state and federal level working with the government. The point I'm trying to make is our people, once they are given the opportunity, they will excel in what they do and they will benefit the society they live with. However, that is a loss also to our countries here in the Middle East, to our homeland, because we are losing these brains, we are losing this contribution. So I'm sad that they left, but I'm happy that they found a place where they are appreciated and they can work and prosper and help back those who are left in the Middle East, in the homeland.
What can be done to save at least spiritual places of utmost importance like churches and monasteries?
What is needed is 2 things. First of all, we need to change the culture that we live in. We need to impress the importance of respecting each other, appreciating each other. These churches and monasteries are a national heritage for the countries they are in. For example, Turkey. We have our oldest churches and monasteries in southeast Turkey. When Christians started leaving Turkey, some of these churches and monasteries were taken over by the government, others were changed into mosques, and others were even transferred into animals shelters and other things. I mean, the Turkish government, as well as other governments, should look at these places like a national heritage for them. They should take care of them. They should learn how to appreciate them. On the other hand, it's our duty also as members of this church and as owners of these places to do our best to maintain them, to rebuild them. And to do that, we need, of course, resources, and that's where we turn to either our people in diaspora or to the international organizations such as the UNESCO and other organizations which help with maintaining historical places. So it's important to keep them, not only as a testimony for the contribution of our forefathers, but also as national heritage for the countries that they exist in.
People in Germany are shocked while reading the news on the crimes inflicted by what's so-called Islamic State. Did Your Holiness, even in your worst nightmares, imagine such an outbreak of violence against the Christians and other religions, just such as Yazidis?
I don't believe any human being would imagine such atrocities, such things, beheading people, cutting off hands of little kids. These are despicable acts. They do not represent humanity, let alone religion. We don't believe for a second that any religion in the world will call for such things. Human beings are created in the image of God, and they represent God on earth, and God will never be pleased with these things like that. And I personally would not have imagined this. But then, unfortunately, we are now learning that we should expect everything. When people leave God, drift away from faith, they can do everything. And what's happening does not represent for us the Islam that we lived with. We don't believe that any decent Muslim person would accept what's happening, but unfortunately they are doing it in the name of Islam. Therefore, it's important for the Muslim leaders, both religious and political, to come out and to dissociate themselves from these acts and to try to stop these acts, because they are hurting Muslims more than they are hurting Christians. What the so-called ISIS and Nusra and others are doing, they are hurting Islam before hurting Christians. It's the responsibility of every human being and of every Muslim to come out and to say these people do not represent me. And we can only pray for them as church leaders and as Christians. We pray for them that God may touch their hearts and make them feel that those who are being victimized by them are also human beings created on God's own likeness and in His image.
How does Your Holiness explain the brutal destruction of churches and monasteries by these gangs?
I wish I have an explanation for that. I don't think anybody will have an explanation, except I see in front of me, I see hatred. I see closed-mindedness. I see fanaticism. How can a building hurt someone? How can a statue hurt? I saw statues of people, poets, bishops, important religious and social figures in Syria. Their heads are cut off. The statue, the stone, the head is cut off the rest of the body. What does that tell us? These people must be sick. Otherwise, why would they hurt statues and buildings and churches and monasteries? Churches and monasteries are places of worship. The places where God is being worshipped, where prayers are raised. Why would anybody be offended by a church or a monastery? Churches were in Saudi Arabia at the beginning of Islam, and they were protected at the beginning by the caliphs there. Churches have been here before the coming of Islam. They didn't hurt anybody. They always, churches and monasteries always teach people to be good people, to behave the right way, and to love and respect everybody. So why are they threatened by this? That's how I see it. I see these people being threatened by peace, by peaceful way of living. And I feel sorry for them, and I pray for them.
Can Christians form a bridge of peace between the conflicting parties in the Syrian civil war?
Christians in Syria have tried to keep neutral mostly. Well, there are some Christian figures who stood with the so-called opposition, others who demonstrated their loyalty to the Syrian government. But Christians, wherever they live, they are usually loyal to the local governments. That's how we are taught in our religion, to respect authority, civil authority. And of course, some people accuse Christians of of supporting the so-called regime, but that's not true really. Christians did not support, especially churches, did not support any regime. We support the country we live in. There is a legitimate government that is ruling the country, and we have to obey that and respect that. Christians in Syria did not try to take sides, but they tried to live peacefully. However, they tried to play a role as a bridge among the quarreling factors and factions, but we paid dearly for that. We lost two of our most eminent metropolitans, archbishops in Aleppo, Mar Gregorios Yohanna Ibrahim and Boulos Yazigi. We lost them while they were trying to mediate and to release some hostages taken by these rebels and armed people. They themselves got abducted, and we don't know anything about them since April 22nd of 2013. So we paid dearly for that. And it's difficult for us to play a more leading role or active role, because Christians have always tried to maintain neutrality and try to protect themselves. Our nightmare is when a government or when Syria is ruled by Islamic rule, because then the life that we used to live in Syria, the culture that we used to live in Syria, the peaceful coexistence and peaceful interaction will be gone forever. We believe in a civil society and in a civil government, a government that is based on principles of non-religion, because we do not want a religious government to rule Syria, neither any country, because when we mix religion and politics, then both sides get affected by each other and get corrupted by each other. So it's better for us and for everybody to have a government that is civil, that respects every human being, that we all are equally treated as first-class citizens, that we are given our rights and we do our duties. That's how we would like to see Syria and the rest of the Middle East.
Does Your Holiness hope or believe one day the Christian refugees from Syria and Iraq will have the chance and the will to return to their homelands where their father and grandfathers dwelt for centuries?
That's very hopeful thinking. I wish that will happen, but I don't see it happening. We have people who left the Middle East the last 50 years, and since then you have always people leaving, going to Europe, and no one comes back. Those who come back, they would come for a period of time, probably to establish some kind of projects, to build their homes, but they don't come back and live in the Middle East. Now, the situation in Iraq is a bit different, because those who left Mosul and the Nineveh plain are mostly in the Kurdish region of Iraq. They are still in Iraq. If these people are given the opportunity to go back to their homes, they would go right now. Most of them would go. But the longer this takes, then the less chance there is for them to go back home. But those who make it to Europe and to the United States and Australia, I don't believe they will go back. I don't believe they will go back. Those who will go back will be probably very, very small minority of them.